Hello, this is Tax Reform News, and this week we're going to be going over the past week in tax reform news. And this is for the week of December 11th, 2017. It's been a big week as we get closer and closer to tax reform passing. As you might know, the House and the Senate already passed their versions of the tax reform bill, so all that needed to happen was that they needed to go to the conference and agree on the same version of the bill before voting on that same bill and sending it to the president's desk. And they accomplished agreeing to a final bill this week on December 15th, but not before Marco Rubio made a big stink about the child tax credit. He held the tax reform bill hostage until the child tax credit refundability was increased to $1,400 from $1,100. Okay, now let's cover the major portions of this new tax reform bill. And this bill is the merged version of the bill. The House passed their version, the Senate passed their version, and this conference met to come up with one final bill. And that's what we're going to be going over right now. First up is corporate tax reform. The corporate tax rate was reduced to 21% from the current top rate of 35%. And this new rate will be effective January 1st, 2018. And the 21% rate is an increase from the 20% rate from the initial bill that was drafted. Okay, another piece of the corporate tax reform is a 20% tax deduction for all pass-through entities. And this includes qualifying S corporations, partnerships, limited liability companies, and sole proprietorships. And businesses will also be allowed to fully deduct the cost of any new equipment in this new bill. And another thing that was very important in this bill was that the R&D credit was also preserved. And many people thought that the R&D credit would be left out of the final bill to make up for other portions of the legislation, but they managed to keep it. And another big thing in this bill was that the corporate AMT was repealed. And this was very controversial because the Senate version of the bill had the corporate AMT in it. And Trump and other Republicans were constantly lobbying against the corporate AMT, yet they managed to keep it. But in this bill, they finally repealed it because it would have conflicted with a lot of the deductions and a lot of the other provisions in the tax reform bill. And another important piece of corporate tax reform is that international taxation will be changing in the U.S. And it will be changing from a worldwide tax system to a destination-based tax system. The U.S. will no longer be reaching across the world to tax everything. It'll be based on what money comes to the U.S. And now let's go over to the individual side of tax reform. The big thing on the individual side is that tax rates were brought down for individuals and new rates were established. And the new rates are 0%, 10%, 12%, 22%, 24%, 32%, 35%, and 37%. And the top rate came down from 39.6 to 37%, so everybody got a tax cut, even the wealthy. The bill also increased the standard deduction for married filing jointly filers to $24,000 and $12,700 for single taxpayers. Another big part of the bill was state and local taxes. And the final bill allows individual taxpayers to deduct up to $10,000 of state and local taxes. And this includes property taxes, which the initial bill did not have. There's many people that are upset that they couldn't deduct state taxes and property taxes. And this would have really impacted the Northeast and California. The Northeast because of property and state taxes, and California because of high state taxes. So it's good that they included that in there, as it'll keep some of these people happy. But this is also controversial because it's seen as helping the wealthy. Because who pays the most property tax and state tax? It's not poor people, it's wealthy people. And another big piece that came out about tax reform is that you can deduct mortgage interest on loans of up to $750,000. And this is another thing that's seen as helping the wealthy because poor people aren't really taking out $750,000 mortgages. And another big thing is that tax reform repeals the individual healthcare mandate penalty. That's pretty much everything that got accomplished last week with regards to tax reform. To stay up to date, make sure to subscribe.